Hello and welcome. It is the day after Christmas. Everybody is recovering from all the wonderful goodies one hopes, as well as family. Whether that was like the best thing ever or you need to recover because I'm just gonna say family. Just call it that. It's one of those kind of days. It's the day after Christmas. I think it's also the start of Kwanzaa and Boxing Day, I guess, which is like some sort of bonus thing in the UK. I don't know. But here we are, and today's episode is about touch as a love language. Some people, I am told, feel the most loved when others hug them, when they are patted on the back, patted on the arm, when they physically are aware that someone is there because of contact. Babies certainly crave it. That's why skin-to-skin contact when they're born is so important. So that is what we're going to talk about. And to help me today, because this is not my forte, that's actually what we were talking about backstage, was I'm told I give great hugs, but I don't really get much out of it personally. So I really consider it something I give to others, but it's not a mutual thing. I don't receive much other than the awkwardness of being super close to people and then having to decide at what point should I comment on I like their cologne or perfume. And the answer I've learned, at least in America, is after the hug is over. If you comment out during the hug, it's a little creepy. No. So anyhow, to help me today, hello, Cherry. To help me is the fantastic Tom, who, by the way, is a national board certified massage therapist. So this is really his episode. And then Megan is here. Yay!
Hello. Yay.
Yeah, and Megan and I were talking about not really into touch, like not hating it necessarily, or at least I don't hate it. But it's just a thing. However, we both love massages. Mm-hmm. So that's cute. Yes, I agree, Cherry. It is the second day of Christmas. Christmas is 12 days. I will die on this hill. Christmas is 12 days. It's not a one-day thing.
We had to sing that song so many times. It's 12.
So many times. How many times did we have to sing it? Because our little sister loved this song so dang much. When it was her turn in the car to pick which song we would all sing as a family, it was always this song. And so we had to sing the song so much that we then made up our own version of a parody of it, of the 8 Days of Hanukkah, that are just like the 12 Days of Christmas song. So it's like on the first day of Hanukkah. Okay, so, and our family, since our family, we had two Uncle Irvings. For the second day of Hanukkah, my bubby sent to me 2 Uncle Irvings and a mother who never gives up. And that is just a hint of our family-made parody. Jerry says, does the U.S. not call it the second day of Christmas? No. The U.S. calls it a work day.
The U.S. very much goes with what was read directly in A Christmas Carol at this point, and that is, there is one day for Christmas and really half a day at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. There are no additional days of Christmas. That's an old European thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Versus, I agree. Christmas is 12 days. How else will you have enough time to visit all your family and friends, to eat all the good food, to do all the games, to watch the movies, to do the fun things? You need 12 whole days. And there definitely needs to be cake. I agree. It's very sad. How are you doing, Cherry? We haven't seen you in a while. How is school? How are you doing? Are you still in school? Have you learned anything worth sharing?
Have you avoided being blown away in a blizzard?
Is Europe having snowpocalypse as well, or I thought it was just the U.S. and Canada?
I don't know. I haven't heard.
Still here, surviving. Bailey surviving. Oh, well, I'm glad you're surviving. We hope you'll be able to thrive eventually. Nope, it's not cold. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. I thought like they were saying that Europe is so warm right now, it's pushing the polar vortex down past Canada into America and all the way here in South Mississippi, which is subtropical. Like right now, it is a balmy 49 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
But like Friday, our pipes froze because it was so cold. Thankfully, they thawed out the next day because, y'all, I'm into bidets. That is
so apparently it's 80 degrees here,
Megan,
according to my computer.
So gross, Megan. 80. Yeah, open it up. Let the warm in. Take it up. Cherry says, my friend is in Denmark, and apparently there is no snow, which is shocking. Yeah, like...
That is weird.
I remember Dennis, who lived... like in the Holland part of Denmark, I believe, and saying how, what is it, during this time period they fry the oily balls? I'm not pronouncing that in a Dutch accent because it's been over a year since I've heard a Dutch accent pronounce it, but essentially it's in English to be oily balls, which they fry over, at the end of the year, at the end of December, and distribute to the elderly so that they will feel warmed and also survive. And I'm like, really, donuts? Okay. Yep. Oily bowling. I have actually thought about looking up, see if I can find a recipe for this because I am very curious and I'm willing to deep fry dough to give it a try. I am here for all donut recipes. Yes. Oily balls. But Dennis said, like, traditionally you do this and you give it to, you go deliver these oily bolins to anybody who, you're worried might not survive the winter so that, maybe they're more likely to survive. So, yeah, it's like, well, that makes sense. Need those calories.
Mm-hmm.
Those delicious calories. I assume before modern times in Denmark, they fried them in butter. And that sounds fantastic. Because, like, liquid oils, like, mostly what would be available would, like, liquid oils would have been, like, olive oil and stuff. Well, that's so expensive to ship in all the way up to Denmark. So I assume, since Denmark has always had cows, it seems like, that they would be deep frying those, the dough balls in butter. And I'm like, hey, there's a version called Berliner Ball that has cream in. Oh my gosh.
Gloria, you know this one. Because
you mean the Patachois?
No. you know this because you know this fact because what's their name? Her name now? Talked about it in the stand-up from 25 years ago.
Sandy Tosvig?
No. Executive transvestite.
Oh, Eddie Izzard?
Yes. Remember, ich bin ein Berliner?
Okay.
I am a donut.
Yes, but that was a German joke, not a Dutch joke that she was making. Anyway, it's fine. It's fine.
I mean, but they do sound delicious.
Yes. As I said, but it's hard to find the recipes in English for olibollen that are not, how do I say this suspicious because they're very complicated. Because the way Dennis described them, these are not highly complicated doughs to make. Because, as he put it, the Dutch would not put up with that. And I'm like, yeah, that's everything I know of the Dutch as well.
I mean, Dennis was, you know, for a true stereotype, he was a woodworker.
Yeah.
Like, he had built his own house and boat and possibly combined them at some point.
Yeah.
It got a little confusing.
Yeah. We met Dennis back when we used to play Clash of Clans, was it?
I think so.
Yeah. And then we ended up breaking off from the group we were in and with some other players and started our own group. And so then we were chatting a lot as the administrators. And that is how we got to know all about Dennis's life in Holland.
Nice.
Yes, and the very confusing. Wait, there's 2 Hollands and 1 Denmark. Are you messing with me?
And Netherlands.
Like, oh god,
It's worse than the UK.
Yeah.
And Britain and England.
Well, you know, I imagine it's just humans in geography because, like, there's an Aberdeen, Mississippi, and it was settled by people from Aberdeen, Scotland. So, like in Mississippi, I've made a list. In Mississippi, there's 5 Greek towns, like including Corinth, Mississippi. That is a real place. And I always thought it'd be fun to write a story that really, like, kind of adjusts the Odyssey, but have it take place in Mississippi, and they go to real Mississippi towns that are named after the same place.
Nice. That would be funny.
Greeks, yeah, so many Greeks settled in Mississippi during and after World War I. So, and Mississippi was still largely, frankly, unsettled, even in the early 19 teens. So, yes, there's Corinth and I can't remember. I actually had Troy. I had to make a whole list. No, there's not a Troy, Mississippi. There's a Troy, Alabama.
Oh, that's something. Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I had to make a whole list.
Because if you combine Mississippi and Alabama, you can go to all the places in the original
Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I was going to have the sirens down at Muscle Shoals. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. I just thought it would be fun. But anyhow, touch. It's a thing.
So what I was really, the basis in massage therapy, what I really heard about touch and the difference between, is this creepy or is this comforting, really was intent. And in this case, what intent was referencing was, can the other person being touched sort of make assumptions about your actions? And that is why often what is creepy and what causes tickling is very light touch, because your body, let alone you, are not really sure what that hand's going to do. And it's that very light touch, that uncertain, that also starts inspiring anxiety, because again, what is that hand going to do? It is close enough to touch me, but I don't know what it's planning on. And that is also why it's hard to tickle yourself, because even with lightly, you still know what your hand's going to do. But if you increase the pressure on that touch, often that becomes more comforting, in part because you have a quicker sense of where it's moving. What's the direction of pressures? There's less question about it. And so, like, because I was thinking about it, and like one of the ways Glory handles, she doesn't care that much for touch. I mean, it's definitely part of that neurodivergence. And part of the way she handles that is by wearing sleeves, which is why she has, in part, so many shrugs. You need to add sleeves to a outfit, just put a shrug on.
Yep.
And that way, the very light touch, just the accidental touch of when someone sits next to you, is not as noticeable and off and on feeling when you've got a barrier there. Because she doesn't mind it when like there's actually just pressure, when she's actually like someone's leaning on her or something. That's not upsetting to the back of her mind, but that very light, is that touch or not, just constantly playing in the back of your head, you don't even necessarily notice that that's what your body's interpreting.
I also get that sensation from light wind, from a very light wind. It's like, oh. So I prefer long sleeves when possible.
Is definitely something to always keep in mind about touch. So like that's also why people talk about firm handshakes and strong hugs are comforting. But light hugs where you're barely touching is not gratifying to either person. It's very much obviously this person doesn't want to do this. They're doing this out of requirement.
Mm-hmm.
I feel still in danger with someone this close to me who doesn't want to be this close. What don't I know? Like, your brain, it loves to predict things. That is part of its job. That's what it's designed to do. And light touch is hard to predict. It says that there's a lot more options and possibilities going on. And that's often what I hear when people really talk about that they don't like touch. It's not, they don't like physical contact. They don't like that very light physical contact. It can be very upsetting. It's very changing. I mean, you see that with your cats and dogs. You want to rev up a cat or dog, lightly touch and move your fingers quickly through their fur. And they will get a lot of stimulation without a lot of muscle movement, just in the fur and skin. And their body will go, let's move. And this is not the place to stay. You can do this with any pet. It really does work.
You have no idea how tempted I am to just turn around and do that to Princess right now and be like, let's see what happens.
And she'll either give you the look of, I gotta go, or why aren't you pressing harder? Now pet me.
Mm-hmm.
I have had a few that are like, what's up with this? Pet me. But yeah, like, that is one thing I did want to bring up was, and we had several discussions in my classes on this too, of because we practice on each other, and we would sometimes notice that when people were working on us, why didn't this massage feel comfortable? What was it that was wrong with it? And often it was the person was not, the massager was not applying enough pressure. And so it didn't feel comforting. You want a baby to feel, this is the whole point of weighted blankets. Weighted blankets is part of that human need for touch.
Mm-hmm.
Some interesting things that, we like data, but may also have some signifiers and reasons behind it, is so you can do what's called lymphatic drainage. While your blood system actually has about 4 quarts of blood in it at any given time, the rest of the liquid in your body, the water, is in your interstitial system, between all the cells. And the way it moves around your body is actually in your skin. And it doesn't have the heart to pump it. So instead, it is your joints that actually act as pumps because it has little one-way levers. So the liquid only goes in one direction. So it too will eventually cycle through and, get back to the heart and get processed. But like, that's why when you're on a plane or something for a long time, your legs can swell. And it's because you're not moving your knees. The interstitial fluids are pooling. But if you just, move your feet up and down a little bit, you can, keep things moving. And you won't see the swelling as much. But you can, as we talked about a few months ago on a show about self-care, you can help drain the fluids from your body very quickly. You can speed up to about 20 to 30 times faster than normal. So yes, if you do it right, you will have to go to the bathroom within an hour. But it only takes 5 grams of pressure to do this. It does not take much pressure. That is how sensitive your skin is to touch. Is 5 grams will cause your lymph system to move. So like, it's not just that you have nerve sensors. the kitty is now, reaching her height. She'll be staying up there to stare at my head from now on. But your actual lymph system, even with just a few grams of pressure, will change its behaviors. And that is why light touch is not comforting, because stuff is changing, but your body's not sure if this is a good or bad thing. There's so much little variations going on. And so that is why whenever you do touch someone, touch them firmly. Not like, we're not trying to leave bruises. We are not trying to break anything or to make them feel, what do you do with handcuffs?
Restrained.
We're not trying to restrain people, but we want them to know that we mean and want to touch. And so when you touch, make sure you actually, apply pressure that you are at least touching their muscle. You have, press on their skin enough to reach the muscle. And you'll find a lot of people, not all, I mean, there are people who truly just touch from other humans is not good for them. But many people who say they don't like touch will find it far more comforting if you are actually pressing to the muscle and you can kind of feel the muscle, move in a little bit. That's the kind of pressure humans are looking for from each other. Is that there's another person that has intent and they want to literally make a connection. They want to make a physical connection, and we can now feel it.
So I most of my life really believed that I did not enjoy touch, like in any capacity. And then I had Cassie, a 10-pound mini dachshund, and I don't mind petting her. I didn't mind petting her. I understood that she wanted to be petted. She made it very clear, in fact, that she wanted to be petted. And I was happy to pet her. But that I didn't particularly enjoy her crawling all over me. Oh, those paws.
Such heavy paws.
Like she'd literally leave bruises on my legs. Like, I do bruise easily. So, but what I did notice is there was one kind of touch I actually very much enjoyed from Cassie. And that was where she would lay down lengthwise against my thigh and then lean on my thigh. So putting, 3/4 of her 10 pounds of body weight onto my leg. And I actually really liked that. That was very nice and comforting. After my now ex-husband left, she very much took his spot on the bed and would be the big spoon, which is hilarious from a 10-pound dog. But again, she would sidle up. She would just keep backing up into me till she got to the small of my back. And then again, lean. You could literally hear her. She would be backing up like a dog said, beep, beep, except you didn't hear the beep, obviously. And when she made skin contact, she would then plop down and then half roll onto me. And I was like, oh, this is nice. Anytime I'd wake up in the middle of the night. If she had moved, I might wake up and then she's like, oh, you're awake? Okay. And then she would back up again and then plop on, like sort of half roll herself. Because sausage roll. And it was very comforting and I slept very well and realized I thought I had wanted to be married, but it turned out I just needed a dog because, the skills that Cassie could not provide in a marriage were the same ones that it turns out my ex-husband could not. Neither Cassie nor my ex-husband could balance the checkbook. It's true. All the things, like he was no good at being handy around the house. Well, neither was Cassie. Like, it turns out he brought nothing to the marriage that a 10-pound dachshund couldn't also bring to this relationship. So I again point out to everybody, if you think, oh, I'm totally ready for marriage, I'm ready for a relationship and commitment, have you tried a dog? Try a dog first. Find a good dog. Like a dog that you really get along with. You might just need a dog and not a spouse. Just throwing that out there. Especially if they know how to like give you the right kind of pressure when you sleep. You might be surprised how some dogs actually like being the spoon. It's odd, but it's I'm just throwing that out. I never thought a dachshund would want to be the big spoon. It's hilarious. She was not that long. But she's like, I'm the big spoon here. Okay.
Which was fine till she was trying to figure out where the small of your back was with her nose. It was always cold.
Yeah, I stopped wearing nightgowns and started wearing pajamas. So that cold nose couldn't whoop. Because she, yeah. Anyway. She and my ex-husband had a lot of things in common. Just saying.
And, and speaking of the big spoon and just it is wintertime, it is sort of also the point of that Saturday Night Live sketch song that was from like 2 or 3 weeks ago. What was it? Big Boys?
Yes. Or Big something. Yeah, Big Guys? I don't remember.
Big Guys, with Lizzo, I think, of you want that pressure.
Yeah.
Like the people who talk about how much they love spooning, it's usually with someone who, like, there's very particular ways you have to put your arms to actually apply pressure, and to even how do you rest your arm without having to apply pressure for it to still feel that weight.
Yeah, I really didn't like it when my then husband and I would spoon and his hot breath on my neck all night. I hated it.
Ugh.
Yeah. Oh God, y'all. It just was not for me. That is not a problem with a dachshund. Just throwing that out there, y'all. Like, there are dogs that would be happy to, be everything you need them to be, and none of, the things that you can't necessarily expect from a spouse, like financial security or financial prudence. And guess what? Dogs too.
And also, on the subject of, spooning and all of that,
weighted blankets,
but also to talk about being human and human behaviors. The last 200 years is very different than the last 2,000 years in this whole human sleeping alone. Up until about 150, 200 years ago, even then, not that much, because have you ever heard in, New York and all these cities that were booming during the Industrial Revolution, how many people would stay in one small one-room apartment? Of this whole humans in their own beds is a weird recent invention. Before, we always slept in groups. You ever see a group of dachshunds, they will all sleep in a dachshund pile, aka puppy pile, on each other.
The happiest dachshund is the one on the bottom.
Yes. God, they love getting hot. Like, to give you an idea of how hot they love to get, our mother one winter was looking after Cassie for a week while we went up somewhere and traveled. And when we came back, or actually, no, we got a phone call. Gloria got a phone call from our mother of, I think I killed her.
Early in the morning, like 7 in the morning.
Early in the morning. It was, I think I killed her. And like, wait, what?
I think I killed her dog.
She hasn't moved in hours. It's like, well, where is she? She's at the foot of my bed under the blankets, and I'm afraid to lift up the blankets.
I think she's dead.
Because they've gotten very hot. Like, Cassie could produce a decent amount of heat.
Oh my God, she was a furnace.
And our mother had a blanket warmer as well.
Yeah.
And she's like, I think the dog died. No, the dog was fine at like 105.
To go get a slice of Hebrew National hot dogs, Cassie's favorite hot dog on the planet.
Yes.
Go get a slice of all beef hot dog. Put it on a fork. Go take it back lift the cover, and just stick your arm all as far as it'll go, and go, Cassie, you want a hot dog? And like see if she starts moving, because more than likely, like, yeah, the dog is not going to die from overheating. Like, dachshunds love to be really hot, like sauna hot. And guess what? Mom called me back. She's like, "You're right, it worked." I suddenly started hearing a thump, 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 and knew she had to be alive. And then she just peeked her little head out, like where my mother covered, because Mom was holding the covers up. And it's like I could see that it was just like that nose was twitching. Where's the hot dog? Where's that? So I gave it to her. She ate it, and then she went back down into the foot of the bed where the heater was.
I mean, if most dachshunds are like Cassie, that she is typical, then I really feel like they missed out having a dachshund in the Ballad of Sam McGee.
Yeah.
Because they are just as bad as Sam McGee about loving the heat.
Yeah, dachshunds want like sauna hot. Yes, I love heated blankets and heated bed covers, mattress covers.
Oh God, yeah. I love heated mattress covers.
That is living. Never get in a cold bed again.
That's luxury right there.
Yeah. And it's like this lovely, smooth heat. It's not overly hot. There's no hot spots. It's just like somebody pre-warmed it for you laying in there first. It's
just
nice.
Like heated floors.
Yeah.
Which I always find interesting of how much more efficient heated floors are to have than to use, air duct systems.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But I do find, now that Cassie has passed away, that I get a similar experience just from putting a pillow on my back when I'm sleeping. Like if I'm rolled on my side, just putting a pillow kind of pressing against my back and lower back, a heavier pillow, is just as comforting and makes me feel safe enough for me to relax all the rest of my muscles and sleep. So again, like, we need to recognize that as humans, even those of us who don't particularly relish touch, may still have a primal need for some aspect of the sensation of touch, even if it's not necessarily from another human being.
I mean, there's a lot of chemistry. When I say chemistry, I mean, hormones and other organic things that your body makes that happen in your skin, and you need touch literally to cause them to be made. Mm-hmm. Including touch increases your immune response and your immune system, because a lot of your immune system, the T cells and everything, are in your skin.
That's true.
That is where it's actually made, is in your skin, your integumentary system, and that includes both the outside skin, but also your gastrointestinal system. That is all actually the outside of your body. How's that for a weird thought process? That whatever you eat never enters your body until after it's digested and absorbed through your intestines and guts. Mm-hmm. Because that is still the outside. And that is part of your integumentary. That's actually part of your skin system. And again, if you're not eating, your immune system does decrease simply because there's not as much touch going on. When you eat, that digestion, that food in there in your gut is literally causing touch sensations and increases your immune system. Mm-hmm. And that is actually part of the reason why they are talking about, for some people, that maybe spacing their meals more and having a 12-hour window where they didn't eat anything can help with inflammation, simply because there's nothing in the gut system to cause the immune system to react and give it a little bit more time off. And so maybe the body can reset a little bit better. But on the opposite side, if you're in an environment where, there's a lot of different stuff, you need that touch from others to increase your immune system and to keep you healthy. I mean, if you ever watched a movie, Temple Grandin, which surprisingly good movie, especially an autobiography type. She's very autistic. There is never a question her growing up. She is autistic. And she does not like touch from other people, but she can also tell how much she needs touch. So she literally made a hugging machine to apply pressure to her body all over and sort of, squish it a little bit. And it helped her feel so much better and actually increased her sociability.
Yeah,
Without
when you feel
touch.
safe, it's easier to socialize and converse with people when your body feels safe. I do want to point this out. You can intellectually know you're safe, and yet you still feel this low level anxiety, and it's because the lizard brain, the very back of your brain, has not been stimulated in a way to make sure that you feel safe, because we are pack animals, and for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years, we have always been around other people, like close confines with other people. And so from a species point of view, we're used to being touched multiple times a day.
And this is why solitary confinement
Is
is
so
considered
cruel.
a form of torture and a very cruel form of torture to humans. And why you will see people when they are, for one reason or another, not necessarily solitary confinement, but also if they get trapped outdoors somewhere and they can't reach the rest of the world for prolonged periods of time, you may see them doing forms we might call self-harm, to their skin. And part of that is actually just the human need for touch. They are trying to cause the chemical reactions to get that touch does. But they didn't start doing it till they were truly starved. And so they are trying, the shortcut to what's the fastest way to get the sensations, and that's where the self-harm comes in. But you'll see them, or people in rubber rooms will literally slam themselves against the walls because, again, they need that touch. Like they're like, oh look, they're losing their minds. No, they're taking care of their own needs one way or another. They don't even realize what they're doing. They just know, I will feel better if I do this. That's how much humans need touch. But we need good touch that helps us feel better and feel safe, not bad touch that makes us feel less safe and even more anxious, and how we need to get away from all other humans. And that's where, yes, Glory and I definitely don't like asking for touch.
Dude, you don't like asking for directions, okay? Like, it's just a whole thing. It's your whole deal.
Look, I don't like asking for directions because most people are worse at directions than I am.
You have to decipher what they're saying and also determine when some people are just nonsense and you move on.
And that is tricky for me.
And that is why I'm the one who goes into the gas stations to ask for directions.
But we still make sure to, touch each other on a regular basis of hugs and or my back's not feeling well. We just, pound it or rub it or whatever and make the pain go.
Or what I call squishyville, where I just flop onto Tom and go, ha 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 ha. Like we're little kids again. Like, can you feel the squish, 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 squishy?
Yeah, you can play
This
games.
Is some nonsense we used to do when we were little kids, y'all.
Yeah. I mean, but there's nothing wrong with playing games with touch. We're humans. Games are fun. It's how we learn what we like, and how we make sure we enjoy what's happening. So yeah, we play. Glory loves to play the squish game. When we were children, Glory was literally twice my size in every way. She was huge for her age. They were for a few years worried, like a miniature Andre the Giant. They were worried for a little bit, like she was going to turn into a giant at the rate she was growing when she was little.
I think when I was 11, I had the same shoulder width as our father. I remember that's when his shirts started fitting right. And he got upset when I would go to school wearing his button-down shirt. Like, he was like, I need this. And I'm like, but I look so good. And, and Daddy was not a small person. He was 5'11". He was built like, a refrigerator, like an appliance. So it's not like he was like narrow-shouldered. He wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't much small. I am a little bit bigger than our father at that age, but not by much.
Yeah. But yeah, like I just was a very like large child, and I mean like I was very tall. I had very large bone structure for my age. And Tom definitely was the other side of that spectrum of growth, where he was at more of the bottom of the growth chart, and I was like, my father literally had to make an extra part of the growth chart for me. And Tom was like small for his age. And we would play games because for a while in elementary school, we shared a bedroom, and we would play games where I'd say, get on the bed, either bed. And then I would belly flop onto him. Like we put pillows on top of him, and then I'd belly flop on top of that. And then be like, squishy, squishy. Again, dumb things children do. And he'd be like, haha, it doesn't hurt at all. And I'm like, ah. And I'd like then get up and like run from one corner of the room and then flop onto the pillows on top of him. Like, we do weird things. We had no cable. We had no cable TV. This is what happens when you leave children to their own devices. I remember at one point a couple years later when Tom was in middle school, we took Tom's top mattress off. He lay down on the lower mattress. We put the upper mattress back on him, and then my sister and I both got on there and seesawed on there and giggled and laughed. And he's like, I'm fine. I'm super. Like, I don't know.
I mean, I was surprised at how much you could distribute force, and then it's really not the same kind of pressure or danger or anything. I had, previously, before that, I discovered that the way most couches are constructed, they often make the backrest, the back of a couch separate from the unit, and then they just tack it on the edges, but mostly just the top and the sides, so you could actually hide behind it. And so I used to see how much could I hide in the couch without anyone noticing, because there was so much actual space back there. And and people would never notice, and they could put all their pressure, and I would barely notice it as well, because the foam would distribute it.
Yeah, he thought he was.
And so it's we had actually built up to this. It wasn't a surprise. It was not a real danger. We did take steps to make sure of will this work? Before they bounced, it was just okay, now one of you get on, then the other. Now small bounce. Let's see. Right, and then it's all right, will any bouncing do anything? It's nope.
Yep.
Because our parents had a very good rule.
Yeah.
Which is where we can do whatever we want playing with each other, as long as no cops and no hospital visits.
Yes.
And no bruises we have to explain to the teachers when school.
Yeah, starts. No visible bruising. Like bruising on your hands or your face would show even when you wear clothes.
Yeah.
So, no visible bruising. I think that was mostly for me because I bruise so easily. I've always bruised easily. So, because Tom has always had a very strong grip, even when he was a toddler. He could open the childproof caps, and I couldn't. He's always had a strong grip. So he definitely has grabbed me plenty of times, right around here, and left bruises on my arm.
And then, of course, there was that one time Mom grabbed you when I can't remember what it was she was afraid of, but
we were having an argument, and she grabbed me out of anger, and I was 10, and she left a perfect handprint, including the whorls of her fingers.
Wow.
My arm. She grabbed me right here. And I was like, you said that as parents, you would never touch me out of anger. That when you spank me or whatever, it's only, to discipline me because I need it, not because you're mad at me. And then you did it. You grabbed me out of anger. And my mother was just mortified for weeks because it took forever for the bruises to go away. Oh, I was so mad at her. I mean, I was very mad. I was 10 and I was very mad. So you better believe I walked around without sleeves on around the house for 3 weeks. Just when she was home. When she wasn't home, I put the sleeves shirts back on. But when she was home, it was just, the shirts like, you see that? And it was the middle of winter. When you see that, you did that.
Versus our father after the first 2 or 3 days, like, all right, but is that actually hurting or is that just...
Yeah, like it bad. Honestly, it was just the way she grabbed me actually that caused the bruise, but you could literally see her fingerprints in the bruising. Which
Wow.
I had never seen that on my skin or anyone else's. And it was just like, because when she grabbed, she actually torqued my skin. Like, she didn't just grab like a grip. She actually twisted because she was genuinely mad. I had triggered her. And I knew it too. Because, oh God, puberty had already started for me and menopause had already started for her. And it was only going to get worse, y'all. Boy, we were like kindling and gasoline. Just not a good combination when my mother and I were both hormonal. Not good. So. But yeah, we tried a bunch of things with the flopping on each other and everything to see what is limit. You could take a lot. I would like to propose other people try things like that. Especially if you're somebody who, genuinely believes, you don't like touch. I get that. But have you ever gotten under your top mattress and had someone then flop on the top of the mattress that you're sandwiched between?
Or have you ever just, seen a friend or a significant other sitting on the couch in their own little world and just fallen onto, their lap backwards?
Just flopped on them.
Just flop.
It's not necessarily for most people it's not going to hurt, physically hurt. Mm-hmm. You would know who not to do it.
Unless you are a really skinny person.
Some skinny people can handle it. Those little Irish folks, though.
No, I meant if you're a skinny person doing a flop. Like if you got some of those bony elbows or scapulas.
Yeah. But yeah, if you have a little padding. But it's you won't harm them, but it's it's kind of fun. It's kind of funny to sort of body surf one person on a couch. I'm just saying, it's a way to get that touch checked off for the day without it feeling touchy-feely.
Without there having to be any emotional intimacy.
Oh, God, or the weird awkwardness. Yeah, just saying, a little couch body surfing.
And sometimes you just need to take a pillow and just smack someone.
Oh, God, I miss our pillow fights. Do you remember when we were kids, the pillow fights?
Oh, pillow fights are also a form of touch.
Yeah. And, especially if everybody agrees you're not trying to necessarily knock someone over. You're just,
my sister and I, our goal was to see who could knock each other out.
Again, let's retain consciousness because concussions are not good.
Yeah.
And if you are playing King of the Hill pillow fight, make sure to take the cushions off of your couch and put them beside the bed so you have somewhere to fall safely.
Yeah. I do remember that I also, especially when I was a teenager, so when I remember probably by the time I was 11, my hips started growing quite fast. And that is when I learned not only, oh my God, I had bruised hips for like
Yeah,
almost a year because I just was not
they really
aware.
did just
Yeah.
expand.
Just it hit really fast. But then I learned because I had such wide hips that and a bottom to go with it, that I could really do something with the hip checking somebody. And I will say that if you have somebody that maybe try hip checking them in the hallway, so that they're more than likely to be able to immediately touch the wall to steady themselves if you hip them as you walk by, or if you come up from
Just
behind.
walking down the hall, hip check Sean. He'll be
Yep.
like, "What's going on?" I'll be like, "Glory told me to."
And he was like, "Oh well, I'll get you back." And again, it's another way to get checked off without it feeling a little too intimate, a little too awkward or uncomfortable. It's meant to be playful. So you're not trying to knock someone flat on their face.
Darn.
I've never had the weight for this. I would be hurt more than them. Okay, I agree. My dad used to have me walk on his back. I agree. But I was able to teach our little sister how to hip check me. She could throw me off. So that and our little sister was always shorter. Like her height peaked at 5'2". But let's see, when I was 14, which is probably the height of my hip checking people in the halls, she was 7. And I taught her at 7 years old, and she was a skinny little thing at 7 because she was a preemie.
Mm-hmm.
So she never had developed that fat. So she had hardly any body fat. Like, we used to have to bundle her up even in the Mississippi winters because she didn't have the body fat to keep her warm. And I taught her at 7 years old, 6, 7, how to hip check where she could even throw me off. And I have a very low center of gravity. So I'm here to tell you, with practice, it is possible for anybody. No matter how skinny mini they are, no matter how high their center of gravity, but you probably need practice to learn what your body is capable of. And also, everybody has one spot that if you hip check them, it will throw them off and they will have to use the wall to steady themselves. And that is how you know you have scored a point. So again, make it a game. Make sure everybody understands the rules first of we're not trying to injure anybody. It's just a little gotcha. And and I mean, in our family, we never even really kept track of the points. But let me tell you how our little sister truly felt like glorious, triumphant, when she could not only hip check everyone else in the family in the hallway, but she actually finally got me several times in the hallway. She eventually learned the exact angle she could hip check and throw me off, which I was the hardest one to do.
You had a low center of gravity.
I still do. Oh my God. I mean, it's something people have learned who have made the regretful decision to try to physically fight me since I've been an adult. And it's like, oh, you don't know what you're doing. Because even the little Irish dudes who are scrappy little fighters know, not this one. Don't try this one because you cannot knock me on the ground. So again, like, it's not about your physique. It's about technique. So you just need someone else to practice with. And yes, have I done it with a Great Dane? Sure have. They're like, what just happened? And that's hilarious. And again, if you do it enough, you really learn how you can hip check someone without hurting them. Because this is supposed to be a game. It's supposed to be fun. It's essentially, if you think about it, a predator, you're just trying to throw someone off their balance. But if you're doing it in a hallway, they're going to be fine because they're not going to fall to the ground. A fall to the ground might be uncomfortable. People might accidentally fall wrong. But in the hallway, it's too narrow an area. They will immediately be able to resteady themselves on the wall. So keep that in mind. And yes, practice. Also, it's a useful skill should you ever be attacked in an alleyway. I'm just saying that if you are somebody who looks like a potential victim, I highly recommend you learn how to hip check people. For defensive purposes. Like, you're trying to be nice in the hallway at your house with the other people. But then once you know how to be nice, you also then figure out how to not be nice and how to really throw someone so far off their center of gravity they just fall back or fall off to the side. So I'm just saying, it's also self-defense and a fun way to do it. But anyhow, how about we take a little breaky break? And
Sure.
when we come back, what, Tom?
I don't know. It's probably time to talk about what causes bad touch.
Bad actors.
But like, how, what is it that how do you communicate? What communicates bad touch to the body? There are actual effects and things you do that will make your body go, nope, bad, wrong, get out of here. This is not safe.
I know when people touch me too hard, like, my nerves definitely could tell. I can tell the way someone touched me if I'm in a bruise or not.
With fibromyalgia,
yeah,
I'm very sensitive. Like, I can't, like, earlier Sean patted me on the shoulder, and it was just like, that was too much, because I could feel it's kind of like the aftershock of it. It just like shoots out through your body, like, in pain. I'm like, this is no bueno.
That's kind of how it feels when someone touches me presses too firm, and I can tell I'm going to have a bruise. It's this kind of, it's a very different after physical sensation where I know, oh, there'll be a bruise, because the bruises take a couple hours to a couple days to develop, because the Ehlers-Danlos, my veins will keep leaking for days, and so it is a thing. So yeah, we could also talk about how to touch people who are very sensitive to touch, because that is something I've experienced with others who, do understand they crave touch, but also the majority of touch hurts them.
Yeah.
And
there are plenty of techniques for this.
Yeah, like, I've actually had friends say to me, you're so padded, surely you could touch me and I won't hurt. But I still had to come up with modifications to truly not hurt them, because the fat alone was not enough. Like, they were apparently under some impression that my hands are fatty. This is muscle. Okay. This is not fat. And there's bone inside. Like, it's soft, but it's not like fluffy soft. So who in this world would try to... There are foolish people.
Many
Terry.
fools.
There's so many fools. But yes, I agree with you. I mean, like, seriously, if you look at my body, why would you want to fight this? Especially, like, what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to get you down on the ground and for me to be on top, because my weight alone will make it so difficult for a person to get back up. And then I just sit on their chest and I can do whatever I want, whether it's smack them or scold them, which I have done both as a child. People have learned the hard way to never try to beat up on my little brother, because I'm not okay with it. But anyhow, let us get a little break started. We'll see y'all back here in approximately 10 minutes. Welcome, welcome. Everyone have a nice little breaky break.
I took a quick shower during that break, so now I smell like a fresh baby.
You took a shower in just that time?
I didn't wash my hair.
Witchcraft. I don't know that I've ever taken a shower for less than 20 minutes willingly.
It's called the water turns on the hot water pretty quickly, and I don't dawdle in the shower.
I am only dawdling. Obviously. I'm just entirely
I
dawdling.
don't really enjoy showers that much, so I try to get them over with as quickly as possible.
I prefer showers to baths.
I like baths a lot.
Yes, I'm the only person in my family who doesn't like baths, so I like showers. Carrie says I had a pina colada and watched half an episode. That's cool.
Nice. I want a pina colada.
Yes. That sounds delicious.
I mean, truly, when you find a good brand of coconut milk, not the healthy ones.
Oh.
There used to be this coconut beverage. I don't know what it was exactly that Trader Joe's used to have. And it made the best pina coladas when you use that instead of like coconut milk. It was fantastic.
Thanks.
I used to make my mother buy it for me, and I would go through so many jars of it all by myself practically.
It has what Megan's crave.
Yes. My grandmother introduced me to it. She was like, "Why don't you try this?" And I'm like, for some reason, my grandma always had like coconut in the house, like the sugared coconut, shredded coconut bits.
Yeah.
And so like we would just snack on those occasionally when I'd go over to her house. But she had this coconut drink from Trader Joe's once, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, Mom, we have to buy this."
Nice. Yeah, I've had coconut water when I lived in the Philippines, and that was very delicious.
Mm-hmm.
And I love young sport coconut, macapono. I don't know what it's called in other countries, but in the Philippines it's called macapono. And it's soft. The coconut, it's young, so it's very soft, like, and it's delicious. At least to me, it's delicious.
Yeah,
it's closer to a jelly feel.
Yeah, it's like jellied coconut instead of like hard coconut. Cherry says, I hate dried coconut. My throat, but fresh coconut is delicious. Fresh coconut is so good.
See, I'm not really big on fresh coconut. Like, I don't know why.
Well, it's hard to get fresh coconut in America. Like, so I used to think I hated coconut till I lived in the Philippines. And it's like literally there's coconut trees in the backyard. And you can drink and then scoop with a spoon. Yeah, that's the stuff. Oh, God, it's so good. And it's just like so delicious and soft. And it's not, I would not say it's overly strong coconut flavor. It goes down real smooth also. In the Philippines, you can get it in halo halo, which is this amazing concept that was like so extra about a snow cone. Like, it's like, what if we did snow cone and then like threw all the deliciousness of the kitchen on into the cup? You know, like, yeah, that's what a halo halo is. And included was macapono. They'll put on there.
I really like coconut water mixed with orange juice, and then if I'm drinking, I'll sometimes put vodka or tequila in it. Either works. They both taste delicious.
I have never had orange juice with coconut water.
It gives it a nice like sweetness to it. Like
I
it's
imagine.
barely noticeable, but it's very delicious.
They, at least when I lived in the Philippines in the early 90s, no, mid 90s, so mid to late 90s, there were like no oranges grown in the entire country as far as I could
Wow.
find. So the only orange you could get was like pasteurized bottled orange juice. It was not fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a very flat cooked taste.
Oh man.
Which took some getting used to. So yeah, like nobody just willingly had orange juice there because it was so cooked and flat tasting.
Yeah. Understandable.
Like it's just, you go with what's local.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, honestly, the Philippines had like every other fruit known to man other than oranges and strawberries and cherries. So like you name it, they grew it. Does it grow in a vine? They got that. There were fruits I'd never heard of, and still, like, to this day, people are like, I've never heard of that. And it's like, I'm not surprised. It turns out there's, like, very little research done into the health and medical benefits of tropical fruits because they're not local to the countries with the kind of money to research that.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yep. Yeah. Jerry also doesn't drink orange juice ever. Tropical people don't really do orange juice, only the fruit. Yep. Yep.
Fresh squeezed orange juice is just like,
But orange juice is sort of a American invention.
Yeah, everyone just eats orange juice everywhere else.
Also, in part because it's a lot easier to ship.
Yeah.
Than whole oranges. Like it's not as fragile. You can just freeze orange juice
or bottle it.
Yeah. Then, so I mean, it's understandable why.
Yeah. So, what I was going to say about touch. So with the friend who needed touch but also really didn't like touch, what I found was if I just wrapped her in a thick, fluffy comforter and then sat next to her, kind of half leaning on her, because I learned this from my dog, that worked out very well for her. She was very fragile. It's kind of funny. Nobody in my family has broken a bone since Uncle Irving got run over by a Model T when he was 8 years old in like 1920 something.
Wow.
And even then it was a clean break. It didn't shatter his leg. So like, yeah, it's been over 100 years since anyone, even in our extended family on my mother's side, has broken a bone, at least that I'm aware of. That is one of the benefits of Ehlers-Danlos. Is bones do not break. We are rubber band people. But she essentially had the opposite. She was very fragile. She almost there's probably only 2 months that I knew her when I knew her for 6 years, where she didn't have a cast on some part of her body because she'd broken yet another thing. Oh, it was terrible. She'd keep breaking toes. Ugh. So, but she touched it, yet she was so fragile. She was so breakable. And that was partly why she was hoping that I could help with that, since she's like, you just are absolutely not breakable. You're rubber band people. There's nothing too hard about you because you'll bend, you don't break. And even my elbows, if you look, it's rather distributed. Let me try to show. You see, it's a very gradual. It's not like a bony end, and that is not fat. That is actually a lot of tendon and cartilage. So that is how we are built. So that was her theory. Finger. So that was her theory, was no matter what we tried, she and I tried, more than likely I wouldn't like break her or shatter any part of her.
Mm-hmm.
But I was still concerned because I am not a muscularly weak person, and I was afraid that I would squeeze too hard or press too hard. And I was hoping and yes, I am the kind of person who owns many, let me try to, super fluffy comforters that if I wrapped her in one, it would help distribute the pressure a little more.
Mm-hmm.
And so would like hedge my, give me a little insurance against, because like how terrible is you try to like comfort a friend who really needs some physical comfort and you shatter part of their body. Like that is not the ER visit I wanted.
No.
Not that I really wanted any ER visit, but it's like, how am I going to explain this? Like, and so I wrapped her up in my thickest, fluffiest comforter, stuck her on my couch, and was like, okay, we're going to try this. And you tell me the moment it's like, oh, I feel like we're in a danger zone of sensation. And that was like, so it's just me sitting next to her and then like slowly leaning and then like throwing an arm over and then throwing a leg on top of her lap. And she's like, oh, this is lovely. Like, there we go. Okay, we're going to get this. And I fell asleep. But anyway, awkward. Thankfully, we were watching Lord of the Rings, so it's all right. But
Let's say I remember when I was in middle school, I had a friend who, I'm not going to give too many details, but she developed an eating disorder and she lost a lot of weight. Like she was, I think, 5'3", and I think she got down to like 78 pounds.
Yikes.
And she was, just very bony. Like I'd never actually, it was the first time I encountered someone who's truly like, you hug them and the bones poke. And that is where, I learned which parts of the body are better able to take this. And that's where it's like, yeah, instead of thinking about your hands as much to hug, you think a lot more about, your biceps and your forearms and your chest of like, we will just, hug with some pressure because everyone still needs to be hugged. They feel a lot better. It is actually one way to help people who are having brain dysfunctions.
Yeah.
Is touch. And it's like, well, how do you touch them in a positive way? And like when you're not sure, you can always you can hug with your forearms and your biceps, the meaty parts of yourself, and apply pressure that way. And because these are your arms are giant levers, when you press in that way, you're just using your pecs, and so you're applying a lot less pressure, and so it's a lot easier to hug people who are smaller or more fragile. Another thing I may have done once or twice is grab 2 pillows and put my arms through each of the pillow cases and just hug with pillows.
Yes.
It helps also with smaller people. Or, and like, the ones who are just very
people
tiny.
Who are in a bad mood and combative. Tom did it to me once, and I was like, this was before I got my hormones regulated. In my late teens, early 20s. And because I didn't get my hormones really regulated till I was like 21, 22. And I was not in a good headspace, but it was the hormones that were making me nuts. And yeah, Tom just came at me with 2 pillows. And I was like, no. And he's like, yes. Again, not trying to advocate to go against people's consent. We're siblings. And we had a very, our relationship goes way back. And he knew what is I'm just in a bad mood versus a real no. But I remember, it does remind me, as you make a good point, Tom, both of our parents had untreated bipolar disorder, which was a wild ride as children. And one of the things that we children inadvertently figured out sometimes, because so the 80s really did not, for the longest time, there was the only thing for depression was lithium. And lithium does not necessarily work very well for somebody who is bipolar. Like, it depends on your particular type of brain chemistry. And both of our parents, here the thing about serious mental illness, especially depression, is depression lies, and it convinces people to not take meds or to not even seek help. And then even if they are trying to seek help, it's no guarantee, especially in the 80s, that they get good help. So often our parents were just trying to help each other white knuckle it, which is not a great thing. So sometimes, like, I remember there was a time we were living, I think, at the Anderson place, Tom. So like I was probably 15, and mom's depression got serious. Like, it went from moderate to, she would sit on the couch almost comatose. Like, I timed her one time and she didn't blink for 22 minutes. And she'd blink once, and then again it would be like 18, 20 minutes before she'd blink again. That's what I mean of, like, she was really, like, this is severe depression.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that my sister and I, my little sister, so if I'm 15, she would have been 8, I think. Yeah, 8. Was if I sat on the couch next to mom and threw one of my legs over her lap while we watched TV, and maybe even then kind of leaned, like rested my arm across her chest. So it's not a lot of pressure. It's just some. And we're watching sitcoms, because that's what my mother did all the time. She loved Cheers and all those kind of shows, Frasier. If I did that for 1 or 2 TV shows in the evening after dinner, by the time it was time to start getting ready for bed at 9 p.m., she would start responding to us and actually talking to us again. Because, like, she would be non-responsive. We would practically have to feed her at dinner time. Like, literally put food in her mouth and make her eat. And sometimes have to, like, Mom, chew the food. And then park her in front of the TV for primetime TV. But if I, like, sort of threw a leg over her, not like threw like heavy, but just sort of,
Yeah.
What are you doing? Just stretching. And then, rested my arm across her chest. After a half hour, an hour of that, she would start kind of coming out of it for a little bit. And then I would get her ready for bed and put her to bed while also getting my sister ready, so my sister would get a bath, and I would brush her hair out and put her to bed as well. And it would be enough so that mom could actually function the next day. Like, I'd get her up in the morning to go to work and make sure she brushes her teeth, or I would brush her teeth, or our little sister would brush her teeth and then brush mom's teeth. And we would get her dressed, and then she'd be almost like, get some coffee at her. She'd almost be enough so that she could drive to work and work. And then, get through the day. But by the end of the day, this was the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, our little sister also started noticing. And so she started helping, like, laying across mom as well from time to time. So I didn't have to just be in this very uncomfortable position for an hour or more.
Yeah.
She would, like, kind of stand on the couch and just sort of drape herself over the couch, and then inadvertently drape herself onto our mother's shoulders as a child, which
Mm-hmm.
that pressure would help. Again, because she didn't like to be petted, and I found most people who are moderate to severely depressed, they don't want fast pressure like petting, but some steady pressure does help seem to stimulate them a little. So to help with the depression, I'm not trying to advocate like, oh, this will cure. No, I am not in any way saying that. But real depression, part of it, I mean, like, it's low mood. The neurology is literally firing much slower than with non-depressed individuals. And so it was, in a way that wasn't upsetting to her neurology, it was helping to stimulate her enough, because she also wanted to function. It's just bipolar is as bipolar does. And when our father went through it, next, we would park him on Tom's bed at the time was out in the living room because it was only a 2-bedroom apartment. And we would park Dad on Tom's bed during the same prime time and do a similar, we just want to sit, sort of lounge as children. We were essentially using subterfuge to, again, do this deep pressure to help stimulate them through their depression as a way to get through it. It can be helpful. It's something to think about when people are experiencing uncomfortable levels of anxiety or levels of depression that make it difficult to function. Hello, Sako. So there are many benefits to touch. And one of the things I wanted to be sure to highlight in this episode is there are many kinds of touch, and there are many ways to experience touch. And even if touch is not one of your personal love languages, like I said, my primary and secondary, neither one of them is touch, but I'm still a human being and I need some level of touch some of the time. But it's from figuring out the kind of touch that makes me feel pleasant and safe and not overstimulated or irritated. Oh my gosh, if you like rub your fingers like this against my arm, it's like them fighting words. I'm ready. Let's go. Take the earrings off. We're going. Like, it really elicits a fight or flight response in me when especially my lower arm gets like that lightly stimulated. I just want to run out of the room, or I want to smack someone. It's too much of a kind of stimulation that is too strong for me. So going on a journey of many decades to figure out the kind of touch that is right for me and my body, and also helping friends and family figure out the kind of touch that they want or need in the case of like our parents going through depressive cycles. It's something to think about. And like when Tom went through a depressive cycle a couple years ago, that was really when I realized, I was wrapped up in my own life. I had a very stressful job at the time. Like, oh my God, y'all don't know how stressful. I had a supervisor who just regularly just yelled for hours in my office where I could not escape, but I could not leave this job because I needed to pay the rent for me and Tom. I was between a rock and a hard place. So I was very stressed and I wasn't paying attention, and I hadn't touched him for over a month. And there he was already sinking further. Tom was sinking further and further to depression. I realized, oh goodness. And then what did I do? I did more than a hip check in the hallway. I passed through the hallway and just sort of did a very slow-mo pushed him against the wall and squished him. Like full body squish. I was like, here you go. I forgot to hug you for a month. I'm fine, Glory. This thing was squished against the hallway wall. Like, oh, really? Squish, squish, bye. And just left. But he was in a bit of a better mood for the next day. Jerry says, first thing that happens when I'm in pain is my skin becomes electric. Yes, like extreme goosebumps. Mm-hmm. Yes, for some reason, when you're in pain or distress, people try to rub your back. The thing I hate the most, please don't. Yep.
So one of the other things about, growing up and becoming an adult is learning about yourself. And then how do you communicate with that with others so that everyone lives in a happier world?
Right.
And the two things that reminds me about is, one, there is nothing wrong if you are someone whose skin gets very sensitive of telling someone, press on me or don't touch me, but do not rub.
Right.
That is a perfectly valid thing to say, and to have someone respect. Of
Mhm.
the, I understand you want to touch me because you are worried, but do not rub. You can either press or do not touch. That's the options right now.
Right.
And most people get that. And the other one is that part where you see people rubbing and where it's really agitating. People, it's a weird thing, but people process their thoughts at the speed their hands move. So if you want to think faster, literally move your hands faster. That is why Italians cannot speak if you hold their hands. This has actually been tested. It is hilarious to watch. Maybe considered a little cruel, but it is funny.
A lot of people with ADHD have the
Yeah.
similar issue of finding it difficult to talk when their hands are being held.
But so that is actually where you see people like moving very quickly in an if they see someone in an agitated situation, the person trying to comfort them is moving the hands really fast. That's because they are trying to think quicker of what do they need to be doing for this person. And so again, this is not a situation where either person is trying to upset the other or in any way be a negative consequence, but because of the very situation, and things are not planned out, or you have not been friends for a long time and know each other very well, it's hard to know this, let alone communicate this in advance. You can make each other worse. And that is where, yes, communication is key. And where, knowing yourself of, like Cherry was saying, of when she's in pain, something hurts, her skin becomes electric and she does not want any touch. And just knowing that you can tell people that of, don't touch me right now. My skin's too sensitive. Like having that as a phrase in the back of your head that you don't have to think about, how do I say this? Really helps. Versus kids do have a much harder time of like, okay, how do I communicate this? All I know is this is bad. This makes me frown. And so, as the adult, you do have to kind of work with them of, wait, you're not looking the right expressions. Why? What's happening? And when do we go? Is it me? Is it something I'm doing? Because again, touch is a form of love and compassion. And we want that touch to show love.
I used to babysit a boy around, I think he was about 6 years old, 5 or 6. And I definitely believe that when he grew up, his primary love language was touch. Anytime we were sitting somewhere, traveling, like in a vehicle or at his home, like he would want to watch TV, and he always wanted me to sit right next to him, and then he would pet me. He wanted to run his fingers up and down. And again, I've said I can't do the arm thing. So he was the kid who got me in the habit of wearing blue jeans, because then I would move his hand off of my forearm because it's too much, and put his hand on my thigh because I don't really feel it as easily through blue jeans, through that thick fabric. Like, here, you could do it here. Do not do my arm. Don't touch my arm. And he's like, okay, because he needed to lightly run his fingers across someone else, across a human. Like, that's what he needed after a stressful day at school. And so that is what we figured out. I was at, how to find that compromise. And, thankfully, a couple days into me watching him, he's like, why can't I touch your arm? Are you mad at me? I'm like, absolutely not. It is just, it gives me the willies. Like it just runs up and down my spine. It's I can't stand it when somebody lightly touches my arm. And after a couple of weeks, he's like, "What is it like lightly touch? What if like I touched like pressed?" And I was like, "That's actually fine. Like if you rest your arm, I'm okay with that. It's the whole like it's like tickling my arm. Oh no, I cannot handle that." And he's like, "Oh, so sometimes he still really wanted to touch my arm." So he would just rest his arm as long as he could stand. Then once that hand had to move, he'd go to my thighs and run fingers up and down the jeans. And that's what, the compromises that we figured out for each other. But at the same time, I mean, this child loved to be touched. So as soon as I pick him up from school, and we would stop at our first place because his family would always have errands that they wanted me to run with him. And I suspect it's because he wanted to run errands. And so his family just make things up. I had to go take him to play. Like, why do we have to go get gas? Why? And they're like, what do you care? Here's $30. Go get gas. Okay, fine. Like that kind of thing. You get okay. But like, so as soon as we got to our first place to run errands, I'd be like, "So you want to get out of the car?" He's like, "Yes." It's like, "Is you ready for a hug or you want to wait?" And he's like, look around, make sure none of his classmates were with him. He's like, "I want a hug." Yes. Like, big old bear hug. And I could just feel his body relax because school was just so stressful for him. Oh. So, like, again, it's like bridging that and, figuring that out by communicating. Everybody, even people who don't like touch, need something like touch. And again, it doesn't have to be humans. It can be weighted blankets or pillows or pets. Cherry says, in general, I mostly do peripheral touch. Like, I don't like spooning. It stresses me out. Instead, I lean my head against a person's arm, and that's the only place of contact. Or I lean on people. Yeah.
Again, it's, it definitely shows we're human. Part of being human is needing that touch. Our brains need it a lot.
Yeah.
And it's finding what works. Because, we all like being appreciated and showing appreciation for others, and touch is one way to do it. But, like every love language, it's how do we make sure we are both communicating the same message?
Mm-hmm. How do we bridge that gap in a way that is conducive for everybody?
And like one of the ways I found with kids, and I don't know how to put it in, people with low empathy, like there are just people who do have a hard time understanding others. If they don't experience it that way, they have a hard time with it.
True.
To explain to people, like when someone has a touch issue, like their skin is sensitive or something, the only way I've really found that I can always communicate with it is to tell them to just hook the side of their mouth and to pull. And then like, why? It's like, because you'll notice that you are fine, and then all of a sudden, nope, your mouth does not feel right, and this needs to stop. And that is what that touch is that people don't like. And they're like, oh, that's what they're feeling. It's like, yes. That's why you need to listen to people when they say, don't, only touch me this way, because for some of them, their skin is not, like yours.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone's mouth has the same reaction of you can pull it and stretch it until a certain point, and then it's all of a sudden, I got to stop.
Yep.
I'm worried about my lips.
Yep.
And it's like, that's the message their brain's getting when you touch them, is the stop, everything's bad. I'm about to get, the body's going to get majorly damaged. And they're like, oh, it's like, yeah, that's what we don't want to do. And the same thing for cats and dogs of like, that's how I explain to kids about why most time your pet does not want you to go against the grain of their fur. That is actually very upsetting and can be painful for them.
Mm-hmm. But
kids, like there's a texture right there. And it's like, explain to them, no, they don't like that. They get very upset. Don't do that.
Or if you go against the fur for a little bit, then smooth it out before you're done touching.
Yeah.
Or that animal will not come near you for petting again.
I mean, it's when we get the message across to someone else's cat of leave me alone.
Cruel.
But yeah, those are just some of the bad touch that it's not even we realize we're doing it. Sometimes it's just people feel differently.
Yeah, you can't tell till someone tells you. I like it this way. I don't like it this way. Whatever it is, like none of us can psychically know how another person necessarily wants to be touched.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Scary sounds like her skin could, double as a form of vision when it's that sensitive.
Yeah. When I hug people, I like do the hug, okay, a couple seconds, and I wait for them to make some kind of movement to signal that they are done hugging, that they push it away.
Like they'll lessen pressure.
Right?
Yeah.
But some people don't. Like, they're long huggers. And so then I will lightly, well, not really lightly, I will firmly stroke their back a little. Because if they are a long hugger, more than likely they are wanting more touch. However, I have known one long hugger, and actually the conversation came up at a party, and that they like long hugs, but they hate to have their back touched. And so they are the only person I've ever hugged where I literally kept my instead. So with a hug, normally it's like this, right? Or something like that, where you're curving in. Except with them, I curved my hands out so that I would not be tempted to rest my fingers on their back. And then, as Tom said, just doing that sideways peck pressure. And they're like, you're the first person to hug me the way I want. And I'm like, you have family. What do you be? Like, yeah, I've tried to talk to them for decades. They're just always it's like, let's just accept our family and friends for however they are built. There is no right or wrong way to be built. It's just a lot of human variations. Terry says, when I was younger, I couldn't understand why someone wouldn't like a hug. I thought maybe if they got good hugs, they would change their mind. Hugs just make everything better. Only good ones, though. Some people are really awkward with hugs. I mean, I have known a couple people that I'm like, you're right, you are terrible at hugging. Like, very rare, but it does happen. It's like, did you feel awkward while you're doing it? They're like, yeah. It's like, you communicated that very well because I felt your awkwardness as you did it. And also, you have incredibly bony arms. That is so strange. Like, I could feel your ribs poking me. How is that possible? Like, some people just do not have padding.
And I feel like that is one of the things, like some people, it's why families often, but not everyone's family, do work on their kids, teaching them here's how to hug. Because there's good hugs and then there's awkward hugs.
Yeah.
And awkward hugs are just
And also, some people are hugging and they don't want to hug, and that definitely comes through. And I have had conversations with folks of I was hugging for you. I don't need the hug. Why were you, if you also don't want the hug, why are we hugging? Why is it every time I see you still want to hug? Why are you? And they're like, I don't know. I'm just so used to it. It's like, we have to figure this out. Because your hugs are terrible and I get nothing out of the hug. So if you don't want the hug and I'm not into the hug, why we hug? We really don't have to. We could still be friends. They're like, can we? Why am I having these conversations? Where the worst hugs come from an autistic friend of mine, then I understood what autism is, and I was like, I got it. I mean, as I said, I'm autistic, and I'm told I give great hugs. Our father was also autistic, and he also gave really lovely bear hugs. Even I like his.
But I mean, versus obviously someone who just isn't sure what they're doing or what they're trying to communicate. That is where intent is very important. Now, but obviously, no one really talked to them growing up from their family about how to hug.
Yeah.
Here are some tips. We can all use a few tips.
Yeah. So how about we do another sprinty sprint?
Sure.
All righty. Well, may I suggest that now is a wonderful time. Make sure you have something to drink or a snack.
I'm definitely going for a snack.
I got to restart my computer.
Okay.
Oh, no.
We'll see y'all in a few minutes. Come back.
Woo!
Tom is still restarting his computer.
Oh man.
The gremlins are out.
Those gremlins.
Yep. Did you get a snack?
I had some pineapple salsa on some wheat thins, which, no, it wasn't wheat thins. It was the other ones. Those, what are they called?
Triscuits?
And they're Triscuits, yeah. And which don't really go well together, but it was good anyways. And then I had a cutie, and what else did I have? There was something else in there. I don't remember. It was delicious, though. It was a nice little snacky snack.
Nice. Very nice.
Oh, we tried some hot pepper vinegar chips from Cost Plus World Market.
Mm-hmm.
They were just okay. For some reason, they tasted like they should have been made out of banana, though. I don't know why they tasted like banana, even though they were potato chips.
What flavor were they?
Hot pepper,
Banana.
vinegar. Yeah, for some reason they tasted like spicy banana chips.
There's banana peppers, but they don't taste like bananas. They just look.
Yeah, no. We were looking at the ingredients on the back of it, and we're just like, "Where is the banana?" It was very bizarre.
I watched the newest episode from the newest season of Letterkenny,
Mm-hmm.
and in it they debate potato chip flavors. And I mean, because Canadians love some potato chips, and I'm like, I don't know what they're debating. All Dressed is the most iconic Canadian flavor of potato chip ever.
Mm-hmm.
And like 20 minutes later, they pretty much come to that conclusion. I'm like, yeah, thank you. Of just, I mean, like, ketchup potato chips in Canada taste pretty darn good, but it's hard to find good ketchup flavored potato chips in America.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, I mean, I pretty much did not disagree with anything from that episode of what they said about potato chips. Like, yeah, Canadians love potato chips. Like, up there, I know that one of the nicknames for potato chips is blizzard chips. And what it is when they know a blizzard is coming, the weather forecast, they will buy bags and bags and bags of potato chips. Like, and that's all they do all day is they just eat potato chips. Like, that's how much Canadians love potato chips. and I've seen it. I'm just like, y'all really, I mean, I thought I liked them, but I apparently am nothing by comparison.
That's funny.
I did not get enough sleep.
Oh, man.
Mostly because of my cat being like, oh, forget these blinds, and then tearing them down because he's an agent of chaos. Yeah, I think I only got 4 hours of sleep. Totally. Oh. Yeah. It is rough.
I would not be functional on 4 hours of sleep.
I'm living on adrenaline. I mean, this is kind of what it was like doing a lot of student teaching of like, I'd be up late grading papers and then having to turn around and be lesson plan and all that. It's intense.
Sounds like it. I definitely don't envy anyone who has to do that.
Yeah, it is. definitely a job that
My cousin is a teacher. She teaches, like, I think she teaches like first graders, second graders, maybe. I don't know. It's been so many years since I've seen her. I have no clue.
yeah. It's one of those jobs that
She's like really good she's really good for the job because she's got like a ton of patience, and I'm just like, I do not have your like willpower to be that patient and sweet with kids all the time.
I don't have a ton of patience. But I would just tell them, like, Miss Vick is tired. I've been up all night grading your papers so that you could all have them, and they told me I had to turn in y'all's grades for the end of the 9 weeks. So guess what? I'm gonna do the lesson, and y'all gonna quietly work on it. And because Miss Fink is just not up for any nonsense today. And they'd be like, okay. They were good kids. Most of them. Yeah, there's always one agent of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
At least one, if not multiples. So, I don't know. So, touch. I've got nothing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel like I've said everything. What else is there to talk about? Have we?
Yeah, I'm not big on touch, so I don't really know the extent of the topic.
Before I can like end the show. All right, Tom. What is there left to say about touch? It's your final pitch, boy.
We've talked around it, but like, what are your favorite touch games? What are the ways you say I love you or I care about you with touch? And the simple, obvious one we haven't actually got over. There are hugs. There's handshakes.
There's hip
There is just putting, there's just contact.
Yeah, just sit next to a person.
Mm-hmm. As your dog and your pets have shown you, you can just lean on someone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine too. The complicated one is massage, because our muscles get achy. Oddly, so far all scientific tests have shown that your muscles overall don't actually get that achy. It is a nervous system situation.
Mm-hmm.
Often what you're actually doing with massage is you are bringing in fresh nutrients through the lymphatic system.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly you are getting the nerves to stop reporting the status quo and keeping them tight. And since your body temporarily lets go of its control of things, that's what gets them to relax. It's actually the getting someone else to move those muscles that your body goes, oh, I don't have a correct idea of the status of those muscles. Because I thought, like, given both of you the way you talk about massage, neither of you has actually talked about massage on this episode. And as well as how many times have you talked to your friends, Glory, around the world of, you need to go find yourself a massage therapist. You are showing signs that you need touch.
When people remind me of rabbits, kind of furtive. Yes. Sit across the room quietly and send me pins on Pinterest. Yes, I agree.
Or
but when people act a little bit like a prey animal, their eyes are always scanning the room. That is when I bring up, have you thought about getting a massage? When people remind me of prey animals, any small, like a hamster, a gerbil, any kind of small animal where they're kind of twitchy and they're furtive, their eyes are all over the place, and they seem a little twitchy, a little sensitive to touch. That's when I recommend that they get a massage. And often they're like, well, I don't have a massage therapist anymore. And what I then do is I'll go online and scan through like all the available like spas in their town.
Mm-hmm.
And look at their websites, or look at, because there's usually something as a way to find local spas or massage therapists and read through. I have known enough, I have talked to enough that I seem to be pretty good at kind of spotting which spas will like have good massage therapists versus questionable ones, or ones that will make you hate massage therapy as an entire profession. And yes, there are massage therapists so genuinely incompetent, you will never want to be touched by another human being again. Even people who like touch would never want to be touched by a massage therapist ever again. I have unfortunately known people who've had this experience in this town. So I'll find them a couple spas to give a call and see if anybody has an appointment. And each time afterwards, it's like night and day with their personality. They go from anxious and kind of twitchy to just relaxed and confident. And it's because the back of your brain needs touch to not feel that you have been kicked out of the group and now the predators will come for you. When you go a long, protracted period of time without touch, and often animals are not enough touch to cover humans' needs. We need more touch than just what like a dog and a cat can provide. That is what a massage therapist can be very helpful for. Because you need to signal to the nervous system that you're safe and that you have not been cast out of the group, left to die on a hill. Because it is that primal. And there is no direct way to rewrite that neurology of the human brain. So, but there are ways to address it, such as Temple Grandin's hugging machine and weighted blankets and massage therapists and so on. But you've got to address your body's physical needs. It's not necessarily your mental needs to be touched, even if it maybe touch isn't your love language. But all humans, no matter how neurodivergent, need some kind of concept of touch because it is that primal. And I'm speaking from literal experiments. I hate to bring up this experiment. It is a terrible war crime. But there have, more than 100 years ago, there were experiments on orphan babies. One group given regular touch and the other group not touched at all, except for like changing diapers and just, utilitarian touch. And the babies who were not touched, and I am not talking about like 3 babies. I am talking about dozens and possibly hundreds that they lied and said it was only dozens when in fact it turned out to be possibly hundreds of babies and toddlers who had been abandoned by their families in Turkey and couldn't, their families could not care for them in an orphanage. And the babies who were not touched except for utilitarian purposes literally wasted away and died. All human beings need touch, and it's not just babies. We need touch our whole lives. It is actually a real issue in elder care that even the elderly, often what kills them is not chronic health problems, even chronic health problems related to general inflammation like diabetes, but it is actually touch starvation that kills the elderly. This is becoming a serious problem in countries that have, how do I say this, a high amount of racism, like Japan. Japanese people, like, they don't, it's interesting in America, people don't talk about the racism of the Japanese, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to call it out. So here's the problem with the Japanese and their own racism they have not personally addressed yet, is Japanese only want to be touched by fellow Japanese people for healthcare purposes. But they're not willing to pay the high expense of Japanese people. And instead, migrant workers are fulfilling the healthcare needs of elderly Japanese people. And the elderly do not want that. They don't want to be around, quote, foreigners. And so they would rather die of touch starvation than be touched but with foreign hands. Even among people who were born in other countries, who've lived in Japan for years, if not decades, this is actually becoming a national problem. And they're trying to use robots, but it is not working, because a robot touching you is not the same as a warm human touch, which is why they're working so hard on synthetic flesh robots, so that the Japanese do not have to address their racism, which humans are wild. I'm not saying America doesn't have racism. Oh my gosh, we do. Oh, good Lord, we do.
But the Japanese during World War II really on par, if not, possibly in some ways, superseded Germany.
The Nazis? What?
Yeah.
But again,
but Japan never had to deal with it because of Mao Zedong. America needed Japan's help, and so they wiped all that and they allowed everyone back in politically. So Japan never changed after World War II.
Yeah.
It's still the same people and mindset that was running it during World War II ran Japan afterwards. So, but yeah, they are now suffering because their population has been decreasing.
Yep.
And there's just not even enough people to go around, let alone the cost of having a Japanese national in Japan going into healthcare.
So it's America that is dealing with this problem. But ironically, America has less racism about foreign healthcare providers touching Americans versus what Japan is currently and will continue to deal with for at least the next 10 to 20 years. But my point is not necessarily to call Japanese racism out, although any racism I'm just going to call out. Like, I really think the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard is caring about somebody based on their skin color, like, or race. Like, I can't wrap my head around it. But anyway, but really the real issue is the elderly are often dying of touch starvation rather than, traditional medical diseases. And I mention that to point out it's not just the elderly that can waste away and have problems. It can happen to young people. It can happen to somebody of any age, middle age. It does not matter. And one of the things I have noticed in my lifetime is that it doesn't matter your personal age. I have been shocked by how many people ignore their own body's need for some kind of physical comfort. And again, yes, a pillow can count. A pillow on your back while you sleep on your side or your stomach can help. It's not like a perfect substitution, but like it can help. And yet people would rather ignore their own body's needs, and then it comes out in weird behaviors. And I'm like, you need more than just what your brain, what your cerebral thoughts need, like where you want to have friends who have similar interests and everything. You also need physical touch. And Sherry says, the amount of issues Japan doesn't want to address. Yes, honey. Japan is such a beautiful country, and there are beautiful people in there. And I mean, like, beautiful in the heart, in compassion. Mm-hmm. But then there's like this like undercurrent of like just serious hardcore racism, and also thinking that Nazis were their allies, when it's like, you do understand the Nazis would eventually have exterminated you too. And instead they still glorify the swastika and stuff, and I'm like, what? Anyway. So yes, there's some anime I don't watch because there's swastikas all throughout the anime. Modern anime. Anyway. So, but my point is really, if I could get, and I guess this is my final thought, if I could get anybody who watches this episode or listens to this when it eventually becomes a podcast, one day we'll do it, to really think about is to at least once a week asking yourself, no matter how many people you're surrounded by or how many people you're not surrounded by, asking yourself, do I feel like I have been physically comforted as much as I would prefer? Does my body need more hugs? And remember, again, it does not have to be a human up close breathing on you. There's a lot of ways to get to Rome. But like, I think the majority of neurodivergent people would feel better if they start like weekly doing sort of a self-check of, how am I in the physical touch area? Am I giving enough physical touch? Because let's be honest. Look, I've talked about it before. We humans are made for petting people, petting animals. Like, animals seek us out to be petted. Rats want to be petted by humans. Stingrays want to be petted by humans. Y'all, this is wild. Fish, salmon. Salmon get used to, like, one of the things fishermen will do is they'll stick their hand down into the water as the salmon go by, and the salmon will like literally come through and get tickled and then swim back around to do it again. And they have documented this on video. Humans are amazing at petting. This is our skill. If aliens exist, one day they will cultivate humans. Like, every ship will have humans on it just for the pettings, because we're so good at petting everything and anything. We are like, this is our real skill. Like, if you can put up with our mouth, this is made for petting. So again, we have like a built-in psychological, like, neurology desire to pet, to touch, as well as to be touched. Touching a koi feels, I mean, it kind of does. It's kind of funny. It's like a weird feeling. Snakes love to be touched by humans, which blows my flippin' mind. Yes. Come be petted by humans. It's amazing. Every ship's got one now. Like, that's going to be like our real selling point as a species. But again, like, humans have a need to touch others and to be touched. It will help your mental health. It will help your physical health to touch other creatures and to be touched in return.
So there was two things I did want to
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Of glories. One was, if you ever hear about how chimps are much stronger, they've actually found that's not quite as true. They're more like 1.3 times stronger. There was some problems with the study, the original one. But the reason why they are stronger is the way they actuate muscles. Humans don't actuate like that or strongly. And that's why we're good at touch, is because we can actually more softly touch things than most other animals on Earth. Animals may be weaker or stronger than humans, but it is very difficult for them to have the dexterity to touch lightly like we can. We can touch at 0.5 gram of pressure. Of almost nothing.
Is exceptional on Earth.
Yeah. And the other part is, speaking of our needs to touch, and that at any age, here's a quick story of my own to show that it's rarely what you're thinking or would assume is, who needs what. So when I was a teenager, I was in the Philippines. I was staying with another family. I was going to school there. And I had a depressive episode. And I realized at one point that it had been 6 months since I had touched anyone else. And I was not doing well. And the few times I did touch people, forgive the expression, but I don't know of any other way to explain it other than the few times I did touch people just in passing, like, just to, help move someone or whatever, at that point, it was quite literally orgasmic because my brain was just seeking the responses from touch of other people so strongly, and I'd had so little that the difference was so great. And I was a teenager living with a family. So it wasn't that I wasn't constantly around people. This was a family with 3 kids. There was about 8, 9 people regularly in the household every day. But I still wasn't touching anyone because I was not a touchy-feely person. And being neurodivergent, I really didn't know how to communicate my needs for touch. And how do I touch someone in a non-sexual, purely friendly, communal way? Like, coming from America at the time in the 80s and 90s, that was not really brought up or explained to young men. And so that was one of the things when I got back to America I did work on, including, I did talk with Gloria about this situation. And that's where she started just, squishing me and doing these things. She's like,
because sometimes I'm not up for hugging, like, and it's like, it's not that I don't want to hug you, it's that I don't want to hug anybody.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I understand you need some touch, so I'm gonna squish you against a wall real quick.
And so, like, I was a teenager among people constantly, and I still actually was technically not getting any touch. So it's whether someone is getting enough touch or not, it is hard to know if you do not talk with them and they do assessments of themselves. It is very hard to tell that.
Yeah, that's really what got me to understand I just need to make it a regular habit to offer anybody, any of my friends, anybody I am, at that level of friendship, beyond acquaintance to friendship with, to when I see them, offer a hug. Would you like a hug? I'll just say it. Would you like a hug? Before, like at the beginning when I see them, or would you like a hug before you go? Because as I said, it's not like I am desiring the hug, but again, I can understand how for so many people, they're not making regular assessments. So they're being touch deprived and suffering without really quite realizing where the suffering is coming from, what the suffering is about. And so they're just in a general suffering rather than, oh, we can fix this right now. I will give you a series of hugs. I will lean against you. We will sit together. We will get you that touch you need, or find that massage therapist that's just right for you, that you feel safe with.
And true, almost ironic in a sad way, the less touch, the less social people are, the more difficult it is for them to communicate their need for touch and the lack they've had. And the other part I did want to also bring up actually is more of a handoff to Megan. Megan, I think she kind of mentioned actually on the show, was it fibromyalgia?
Yeah.
How do you communicate with a massage therapist the kind of touch and pressure you like? Because it's not always easy to communicate with someone when you have a literal physical sensitivity issue, and they're going to touch you.
Mm-hmm. Ironically, like, usually I like really strong pressure, except on my neck. So I usually am. That's what I tell my massage therapist. Like, you can really go at it with me and I'll be fine, but my neck is a very sensitive region, so that needs a very gentle pressure if you do anything near that area. So, yeah.
And it's something to also even bring up with your friends. I've had plenty of friends over the years who've had different disorders that make them sensitive, whether it's fibromyalgia, MS, rheumatoid, and it's very easy to get into the mindset that person is fragile, versus their bodies are different across. Well, I mean, the sensitivities and the situation is different across their entire body, and what part is fine with very firm, and what part is like, go real careful on that. That's just,
Mhm.
I can feel the ocean 10 miles away with that part of my body.
Like, I know my shoulders, they can't, like, any sort of padding is that hurts a lot.
Mm.
It's one of the things I've learned about my new body, I guess, because it hasn't always been this way. So,
And another part, speaking of massage therapy, and essentially a transactional way to get that touch we all need, as well as and some people though may think of like traditional massage therapy where you're in a room on a bed, and it may be a little too intimate and a little too interpersonal for them to handle. Large public locations like malls, um, especially during holidays and such, will often have massage therapists set out in the walking areas where you can get a chair massage. And often that is a great sort of gateway to getting you that touch you need. And then also, unlocking some of that social communication that may be more difficult for you to then discuss more. But it's also a way to build a relationship with a massage therapist, because often they do multiple locations. And so you can work with them as long as you want on just chair, which will still massage a lot of your body.
Mm-hmm.
Until you find someone you're really comfortable with, and maybe you do want a more traditional, laying down, relaxing massage.
Yes, I would say as writers, a lot we could get a lot from having our arms and hands massaged in those chair massage locales. Because
I've known several women, especially older women, who get their nails done every week, specifically just because it includes a massage for their forearms and or their calves, with the nails.
My grandma used to do that because every week she would go in and get her nails done. It was.
And so
I always thought manicures were kind of odd because you are paying a stranger to hold your hand for 30 to 60 minutes. Because that's like, think about the majority of getting someone nails, they're holding your hand. And it's like, yes, I will. Okay, I will hold back. Yeah.
But it is something to remember of, if you have friends or family that you start to notice, like Lori said, they remind you a little bit of rabbits. They seem to be showing signs that, or they even tell you they don't really get to touch or hug people now because they are remote working and they don't even get outside much. And they haven't been able to socialize for a while. Consider gifting them these things that might help them go get touch, like a mani or a pedi or mani pedi, or find out if there's any places that do chair massage around there. Half the time you can actually just hire a massage therapist to come to somebody's home to do a chair massage, and all your clothes stay on. You'll feel you can feel safe the entire time. You can have other people there if you want, but you can still get that touch your body needs. And yeah, I feel almost like we need to apologize that this is not more of like the rest of these episodes have been about how do you express love, but it's because touch is so essential. That's why it's a language of love and compassion, is because it's essential to us. It is right there with food.
Yeah.
We need touch.
Yeah, not all species are like this, but humans in particular are. Humans need regular touch, like multiple times a week, ideally.
It's not just babies.
No, not just babies.
But that is why hospitals will let people volunteer, literally, to just come in every week, however many days they can, to the neonic, and they'll just wear a hospital gown so they can undo their gown and literally put the baby against their skin so that baby will feel human touch. Because it is drastically different with the chances of survival.
Yeah.
If they can feel other humans.
That is how we as humans are, is we need that. So it's something to keep in mind. I I feel, and maybe I'm oversimplifying this, I do feel like as a love language, it's fairly straightforward, like touching someone in a loving way, like, but just in case somebody is neurodivergent and maybe did not have the benefit of having neurodivergent family to raise them, this is how I instruct neurodivergent children to understand how to touch people in a good way, or even animals. And it's like this: you close your eyes and you think about the person you're about to touch, and you think about how much you love them and how happy you feel when you're around them and how you feel safe and you look forward to seeing them. And then reach out with your eyes still closed and do what feels natural. And then if they go, ooh, then that probably means lighten that up a little bit. You're squeezing them too hard. Like, just listen, use your ears, feel if their muscles feel tense, maybe like not touch quite so hard. People, just through touching them, you can kind of figure out what kind, like whether they like it or not. And just do what comes naturally. Maybe you just sit with them if that's what how you feel in that moment, to express you love them. But that is what I've actually told neurodivergent children on how do you touch people in a loving way, because the thing about neurodivergent people versus neurotypical people can get away with being very intuitive, because neurotypical people are very similar to other neurotypical people. Like overall, they're all pretty similar, but neurodivergent people are unique in their neurodivergency. So there's no one exactly like you if you're neurodivergent or you suspect you may be neurodivergent. And if you love someone who's neurodivergent, just keep this in mind because it may help you understand them. And so neurodivergent children don't intuitively know how to necessarily touch someone in a loving way, but they want to, because all children wish to touch people in a loving way. It's part of being human. We crave this. We crave to touch people and we crave to be touched. It's just part of our species. So, like, I don't know, of all the things, it feels so strange to say how to touch somebody's love language, because you just sort of kind of figure it out with cues, which I am aware of what I just said, and I am ADHD, and cues are not my strength, or and probably anyone else who's neurodivergent. Cues are probably not our strength. But you kind of, you vibe it, you figure it out. If you're not good at vibing and you know it, then just say, hey, can I sit down next to you? Okay, or I'd rather you sit over here. Okay, then, you just literally take their cue. Trust people to tell you what they want, but understand you may have to interview them.
And like, if you're trying to figure out what kind of pressure to hug people, the easy one is you're hugging them, they're probably hugging you. So try to apply about the same pressure they are.
Yeah, just mirror it. Like, so if they're hugging you softly, try just hugging them softly. If they're hugging you very firm, like a bear hug, hug them very firm in return. If they lift you off your feet, which is something that has happened to me, after they put you down, do the same to them.
Mm-hmm.
Either they will never do it again, hopefully, or they will go, oh, thank you. You don't know how much I needed that. Either way, kudos. Again, like,
when in doubt, mirror.
Yeah, when in doubt. And I know, again, neurodivergent people do not necessarily have an adequate amount of mirror cells in their brains. I get that. Of all the people, trust me, I get this one. But again, you can overtly learn this, and you will find that your friendships deepen and strengthen, and they will last you decades. And you will find those relationships more fulfilling, in part because you have directly communicated what do you want or not want. So I have had friends who I've been friends with for decades now. Some of them like hugs, some don't. But I have asked, do you want hugs? Are you a huggy person or are you a non-huggy person? What do you want? And thankfully, being neurodivergent means you're probably opinionated. They'll actually say, what they want versus, I don't know. Oh, I hate that one. I don't know. Excuse me, how are you still alive after all these decades? You still don't know what you want. Like on touch. Like, I'm not saying what do you want for dinner. I get that. But like, what do you want touch-wise? Surely after 20, 30 years, you figured out whether you like hugs or not, or at least what kind of hugs you like. So if you are neurodivergent and you're watching this, which is more than likely the truth, because neurotypical people normally can't stand us for very long. So definitely not 2.5 hours in. They're not going to still be here. Not normally anyway. So understand you're neurodivergent, which means you can't necessarily just figure it out. You're going to actually have to ask, have to use your words. I know you probably hate using your words. At least Tom does. Tom hates asking for anything. But at a certain point, if you corner them and say, what do you want? They'll maybe at least give you a hint. And you will eventually, through a series of very short interviews, figure out what they want and what they don't want. And like where you can like get maybe your pettings in. Or if that you need to actually get a cat so you can pet them. Because again, as humans, we love to pet. We love to pet everything. I will pet pillows. I literally, when I'm on my side in bed, sometimes I catch myself in the middle of sleeping. Like I'll be asleep. I'm dreaming. And I wake up because I had been petting the pillow and I got to a cold part. And it startled me awake because I thought it was wet. But it was just cold. I do that. I literally pet pillows in my sleep, y'all. Who knows? Maybe you do too. And you were like, I keep waking up thinking my hand is wet. Baby, you've been petting things in your sleep. Now you know. So embrace it. Give it a try. Report back to me. Next week, we're going to talk about the most dreaded love language of all, it would seem, according to AuthorTube. Compliments.
My favorite love language.
I'm
personally.
so glad, because it seems like the majority of AuthorTube hates receiving compliments.
I don't understand that, but okay.
Oh, well, I can explain it, but I'll wait for later. But there's very good, obvious reasons that any psychologist will be like, but of course.
I mean, I didn't grow up receiving compliments. My parents were like older, they were much older. Mm-hmm. And they were of the opinion of you don't compliment children because then they'll get a big head. So I had to learn to give compliments in my mid-20s when I was becoming a teacher. Mm-hmm. Because children do need compliments. Again, all these love languages, by the way, children need all of them.
Yes.
Children come out of the womb needing all the love languages. And then at a certain point, somewhere in their development on their way to adulthood, they start preferring some over others. But all young people, young, like children, toddlers, infants, need all of it, even the compliments. That's right. I know 4-month-olds do not understand English or any language, and yet they need compliments. They've actually studied this, and they found that infants can tell because when we compliment babies, we use a different tone of voice, and we are apparently hardwired to need those sounds in order for the brain to grow right.
Oh.
Yes, so babies need compliments. Who's a sweet baby? You're a sweet baby. You're so, oh, I love your skin is so soft. Are you ready to eat? Oh, yes, you're a good eater. They need to hear that for their neurology to grow right, for their brain to grow the way they need it to develop, to learn to walk, to learn to eat. Like, so chewing and swallowing and it going down into the stomach actually is a very complicated process, it turns out. Exactly. We are all hardwired to compliment and to like hear compliments for the benefit of our neurological system. We need to do it and we need to receive it for our brain to feel that we are safe and that we have not been cast out of the village, left to be eaten by wolves or bears, or I don't know, oxen, I don't know, whatever,
Aurochs.
That's it. So, once upon a time, giant ox roamed Europe and ate humans. And I am not making that up. I actually looked it up. So, anyway, that's right. Some mammoths were afraid of them. I'm serious, y'all. Like, the earth is wild. It's just a wild place. It's stranger than fiction. But anyhow, so that is going to be our final official love language. After that, we're going to talk about like other like ways to perceive love, like familial.
Actually, I had an idea.
Okay, what you got?
So here's my pitch.
Okay, let's hear your pitch.
For the rest of this series.
Sure.
Because we keep talking about it every episode.
Yeah, well, because love.
What are the other things a baby and child need to thrive and survive? Oh. So one of them we probably need to do that I think we'll get plenty of people showing up for is we need food. We need to do an episode on food. And how do you make loving food? Which is very different than just survival food. How do you tell your body that this nutrition is loving? And they've done studies that actually do show the difference in how you digest it. So it's like, what do we just do the rest, for the rest of them? What is the other things babies need to thrive and survive?
Okay.
Because, yeah, these are all things we never stop doing, but we kind of psych ourselves out of noting that this is what we need.
I think it is such a kind of sad thing that in the 21st century, we as humans on Earth have gotten really good at rationing out love, both receiving and giving. And I'm not saying everybody rations, say, giving love, but as a society, as cultures, I think we have really like institutionalized rationing the expression of love in all its many forms. Like, so yes, okay, one of my love languages, I guess now, is sending out memes. I like it. I like sharing it. I have found some people are like, no, I don't want to get that. I don't want your memes. It's too many, Gloria. It's too many. And I'm like, you can just go look at it anytime you want. You don't have to. They're like, I can't be part of this. Like, what? I'm not asking for a report. I'm not going to even check to make sure you've looked at my latest memes unless there's one that I'm like, did you see the one? Because I thought of you when I did it. And then I'll say it. And if they go, no, I haven't seen it, I'm not going to feel miffed like, it's going to be like, well, you should go check it out because I thought of you exactly. That sort of thing. But again, why wouldn't you want somebody to send you whatever is their expression of love to you? It's like, it really does. The way people say it to me, it seems like they're like, you're giving me too much love. I don't want this much love. Like, why wouldn't you want to receive love? It means you're safe and you're lovable and somebody cares about you. Why would you not want this? But I have again and again, y'all, in my life and in AuthorTube, found people who were like, no, Glory, you are loving me too much. And they just sort of, like Homer Simpson through the hedge, just kind of disappear, pull back. And I'm like, what is going on that they don't have an adequate capacity to receive love? Seems like a tragedy in an existence.
Well, this is the long-term side effects of Western Europe's colonization of the rest of the world. And specifically when Europe colonized the rest of the world was during that Industrial Revolution when they were going, we can master everything. Mm-hmm. And the way you show mastery is by controlling it. And love is not about control.
Well, no, it specifically can't be.
And so
love says, you're great, you're perfect exactly the way you are. You don't need to change for me. You don't need to be anything but you because I just love being around you. You're a lovable person. Like all babies come out lovable. I'll die on that hill.
Oh yeah, Glory gets on to me when I will trap her on Instagram, sending her a video from this one account of just the most adorable babies of color.
Many babies.
Yes, doing adorable things.
He knows the baby fever has never left me. He knows I have no way to get a baby of my own because I'm still working on my finances. He knows he is making me suffer with, do you see all those cute babies in the world and you have none? He knows. He knows he's torturing me. Do I stop looking at all the adorable babies? Hell no. Hell no. I love it. I'll take the torture. They are adorable, sweet little babies. Oh my God. Anyway. But anyhow, so that's what we're going to do next week. We'll talk about compliments as a love language, how you can compliment even when it, again, maybe you're like me and you did not grow up in a household of compliments. So you're like, how I do this thing, compliment, where it doesn't feel creepy to either me or the receiver, which is where I was in my early 20s of like, how do?
Mm-hmm.
It was a dark road, yo. And maybe those who love compliments will be able to join us, to give us their tips and tricks. Which, because again, let us all learn. Again, as somebody has pointed out, though, all of this series, this particular season, is useful for writers because to put this in our writing will appeal to more readers. So if we are able to have various characters exhibiting these various love languages and other ways to express love, including food and so on, it will only enrich your writing.
Also, it gives you great places for miscommunication and difficulties. As every language of love we have discussed this season, there's people who enjoy receiving, who enjoy giving, not necessarily the other, though.
I mean, think about like George Bush trying to massage Angela Merkel's shoulders.
Oh man.
And her just go, ugh. Like, again, I know somebody whose love language was definitely not touch, or at least not in a professional capacity, and somebody who did not differentiate people who wish to receive physical touch and those who are not cueing that they want that, let alone in a professional capacity. So, again, all those things do make the writing better, make it more nuanced. So all these things will help your writing, which an added benefit. So we hope to see you next week. Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye.
See you later. Good night.
Yeah.
Yeah.